Hey, happy to be with us today. I'm not wearing eye makeup. Had a little bike accident, Katie, but we're good. No broken bones. And we're talking today about Taylor Swift. She's always in the news. She's in the news for two things related to intellectual property. A couple weeks ago, we talked about her being sued by this whole life of a showgirl story person in Las Vegas. And now her lawyers have stepped up to the plate. It's going to trial in May. We're in the month of May, so it's just a few days away. And they're almost, I don't know if it's a countersuit, but they're definitely saying this is, uh, just a flamboyant, nonsensical lawsuit trying to capitalize on her fan base. But what do you think? You think the person will back down now that their their heavy hitting lawyers are coming with all forces?
I don't think so, because I think if she was going to back down, she would have done it already, right? And I think why file the lawsuit just to back down at the beginning? And so I think this is something that will definitely move forward, and it might even go on to a trial if there can't be a settlement that's reached here.
Wow. Do you think if you're Taylor Swift, you end up paying, or do you think that that's almost like surrendering to the principle, creating a precedence of like, hey, you can probably sue me and get some money? What do you think?
Yeah, I think ultimately her legal team will probably want her to settle, right? Just because um, if you settle, you can usually, there can be a little bit of a negotiation around what that settlement will look like. Whereas if you go to a trial, depending on if it's a jury or a judge trial, you're kind of putting, what your check might need to be written in the hands of your 12 peers, and who knows what something like that could look like monetarily wise. And so it's a little bit more of a
Control.
gamble. Now,
Yeah.
she could, in a trial, right, she could be, set free, right, and not found guilty of the infringement, and walk away not having to pay anything. But it's a gamble, and so lawyers like to reduce
Mitigate
risk,
risk.
and
Yeah.
right. So settlement is one way to do that and kind of have a little bit more of a predictable outcome.
Mm, wow. Interesting. Yeah. It's really bringing up a lot of issues, and I see people weighing in on both sides. Probably more people against the other woman, you know, that's kind of what I'm reading is like, hey, this is ridiculous. There's no confusion. But at the same point, why I mean, this is almost what I'm thinking. Her lawyers did try to go to trademark the name and were rejected, and then, went ahead with the tour anyway. So that's a little bit interesting because, you know, I don't know if they say that that admits uh, motive. Like, obviously, if you file a trademark, you're trying to protect it, you got rejected. Does that represent guilt?
Right. I mean, I think it certainly represents awareness,
Yeah,
right? That
yeah,
she was aware of this other mark. So she knew it existed. She knew it could be potentially a roadblock.
yep,
But this happens all the time, right? Where, you've invested a lot of time and money into your branding.
yeah,
And at that point, to have to rebrand and, destroy product, right, that has the marks, that could be a big um, monetary loss,
yeah.
especially if she already had the tours lined up, right, the album. So my guess is probably her attorney said, just let's roll with it and see what happens.
Interesting.
um, and she's someone who has deep pockets to defend this action, right? Whereas if it's, a startup company that maybe they're just getting off the ground, probably at that point, rebranding isn't as big of a hurdle
Yeah.
as someone with her notoriety and success. So I think it just depends upon where you're at in your life cycle, your company's life cycle, to strategize on how do we respond to something like this, because this type of stuff
Yeah.
happens all the time. And Carrie, you've even experienced this yourself too.
Yeah. 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 I mean, like you said, back to my company, we had a rebrand and I didn't want to go to court. I thought I had a case. The US government granted us the trademark, but with that oppositional period, how common is that, Katie, where somebody does get granted a trademark and then the oppositional period just, you know, reveals people who want to fight you?
Yeah, believe it or not, it happens more often than you would think. And so it's kind of a weird system we're in, where you have to go through all these hurdles to overcome rejections from the office, right? The trademark office.
Yeah.
And then you then have to let the mark sit there for this opposition period, where some random person could come oppose your mark and create more hurdles. So it's something that, it kind of delays it. And then if you do have the opposition filed against you, now you're probably 1.5, 2 years into the whole prosecution process, right?
Yeah.
And so it just restarts. If you refile a new mark, then you just restart it all over. There's no guarantees it won't happen to you on your new mark. So it just creates a lot of hurdles to branding, protecting your branding. And it can create some real problems to navigate there.
Absolutely. I'm still waiting on my instant IP to be approved, you
Right.
know, from all the rebranding. I think that was almost 2 years ago, this summer, I think.
Right.
I think it was 2 years ago in July, and, we got new shirts, new website, new app branding. I mean, it's a lot of money to rebrand. So that's story one. Story two is that Taylor Swift on her own decided, hey, AI is not my friend. AI, maybe she listened to the Matthew McConaughey that we talked about, him in his town hall meeting, where he looks in the camera and says, you better protect yourself, your name, your voice, your likeness. We're seeing this happen. I mean, even I read some actors who passed away who are essentially licensing the name, image, and likeness of actors, whether that's the family foundation. But I think this is going to happen a lot where, I mean, I think Michael Jackson has a new movie out now. Of course, it's not the real him, but you could see that happening. And with AI voices, they could almost create new music with Michael Jackson. I mean, that's a thing probably coming. So, what do you think about Taylor Swift filing some of these trademarks?
Yeah, I think it's a smart move, especially with these AI imitators that are stealing, different human traits from
Yeah,
human beings and trying to monopolize on that.
sure.
I think we'll probably see a lot more of these filings by celebrity figures, because it's another layer of protection and kind of gives them more autonomy to control,
Yeah,
their voice and their name and things. So I'm not surprised she did it. She, we've talked about this before too. She takes a very proactive approach to
sure.
her IP protection. She really, files a lot of trademarks, a lot of IP, to make sure her branding is locked down. So I think probably we'll see her continue to file even more marks as time goes on too.
Interesting. This is one point. She didn't protect all of herself, meaning like it sounds weird, but just like Matthew McConaughey protected certain slogans that he says, all right, all right, all right, something like that. Taylor Swift protected certain phrases. And I read that that's a strategy because if you win, if you secure one trademark after your voice, it's more likely that you could do all your voice. In other words, she can't protect every statement on the planet of her of her voice, but if you at least have a representation, then you could kind of fight other infringing things. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. And it's also about strategy with your moat, right?
Yeah.
And kind of how do you create a strategy to protect different facets
Sure.
of your, persona, your phrases, what types of words you're using, all of this to kind of robustly enhance your positioning too, because it's again another strategy where if one mark or some of them get knocked out, right, you have other levers to fall back on. And that's why kind of being proactive and creating an inventory of your IP to figure out what are we
Yeah.
creating, what are we protecting, where are there gaps, can be a good way to kind of keep on top of all of that too.
Well, we talk about in the book the 12 steps to becoming an IP company. And you're right, like visualizing, first of all, she has to get the vision of, hey, I'm worth protecting. Then she has to organize kind of what you're talking about. In fact, you use that exact word, inventory. So she's inventorying her past and present. Then now she's creating a system. She's definitely normalized the process. She specializes herself, in terms of, hey, I am a singer, I'm a songwriter, I'm a female entrepreneur. Now she's verbalizing it. She's definitely turning those ideas into assets. She's monetizing them. It's one of the most, the Eras Tour, one of the most successful campaigns, and then maximizing, evangelizing, globalizing, and optimizing. So even without Taylor Swift probably reading our book, I would say she's following the 12 steps pretty good. What do you think, Katie?
Absolutely. Exactly.
Yeah. And I think the key at the bottom is, I love these statements at the bottom. The sooner you take your IP seriously, the sooner people take you seriously. Protect your ideas before you promote them, and then don't protect it when you're big. Become big by protecting your IP. How much, Katie, do you think that startups, et cetera, don't think about their IP? Like, oh, we better register our name with the Secretary of State, or, I mean, it seems like that stuff is almost like the end of the game rather than the beginning for a lot of people.
It is, especially too if it's maybe a first time founder who's never done this before and they don't know what they don't know. So they a lot of times miss some of these key steps. And, the thing to remember too is that what you might incorporate your company on a website in a state, right? Like if you're going to go do a Delaware C Corp, right? That might not necessarily be what you're going to trademark as your company name, because you might do business under a different name than
Sure.
what you're incorporated as. So that's a point too that I think sometimes founders don't realize, that the business entity and the incorporation is a separate process from a trademark.
Interesting.
And so that's something, you want to work with legal counsel to do a search in whatever state you're going to incorporate to see if that company name is taken or not. And then you're going to have to also do some searching at the trademark office to see if that company name is trademarked already or not in the particular goods and services you might be offering. And I'd say a lot of times too, if you're just doing maybe some seed fundraising, right? The company name, investors might not care too much if it's trademarked or not, but as time goes on, you're going to want to do that so that someone else doesn't box you out from being able to protect it.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're absolutely correct. And you can make the inexpensive choice up front, or you can delay brand and then have to rebrand, which is not fun.
Right.
I think I remember, Katie, one of the this is such a small example, but it ended up being a lot of money. There was a Star Wars. They ran out of the first toys the first year that the movie came out. So the second movie, I think it was the second, they like made so much product in advance, and then they changed the name of the Star Wars film at the end, and so they had all this IP that now needed to be destroyed because it was irrelevant. So they're literally taking so much money and product and like burying it. Like, it's so sad, but um, it was an IP change,
Right.
and you couldn't have the off-brand going out in the world. Pretty
And
nutty.
unfortunately, too, this happens quite frequently, right? If you're found to be infringing someone else's mark, you have to destroy your product that has the infringing mark on it. And so that can be a huge, cost consequence of part of the rebranding process.
That's true. And again, we're probably going to get some Star Wars fans that are quoting me on this, so I better get the name exactly right. But I will. I don't see it popping up immediately, but anyway, I know I saw it, and it was crazy. It was on that History Channel. But again, I watch everything through the IP lens, but I think you're right, and it's a representation that IP holds a lot of value, and you have to be accurate, otherwise you can be infringing. So, Katie, let's make this super practical in our last 2 minutes. What do you say to somebody who's a rising star, a rising product? With this AI going out, especially personalities. I think I saw this week, the Prime Minister of Italy was copied her IP for a deep fake. I mean, I think this is just happening more and more.
Absolutely. It's just going to continue to happen even more. So I think that's why protecting your IP early is so important. We've seen this too in the copyright sense with the Anthropic book cases, right? Where in order to recover funds, you needed to have your copyright federally registered. And that was an AI grab of all of these copywritten works and illegal reproduction. So I think it's just more of a reason of why you need to protect early. And especially, with these AI tools now, it's really hard to operate in stealth mode anymore because these AI tools can go grab things from all over the web and put this digital footprint together on your company. So, people are noticing these things way sooner and earlier and putting those puzzle pieces together. So that's why it's, time really is of the essence here.
Yeah, absolutely. And just wanted to say congrats to Wigan X. And we've rebranded our outro, our intro. We are coming on strong here. We'll be in Boston next week. We'll definitely report on how that goes. We'll even be on the Harvard podcast. So lots of cool things happening. And just thanks for being here, Katie, on the journey. And we'll tackle the next trends. I'm sure there'll be more next week.
That sounds great.